Today, we have a one-off on the Song of Solomon. And you weren't counting on that, were you? That's an interesting book. Fascinating book, but I described this beautiful homage to the love that germinates and blossoms between a man and a woman. And it stood out among the 1,005 songs that were written by Solomon, according to 1 Kings 4:32, as the Song of Songs, the supreme song. It's a literary masterpiece of Oriental symbolism filled with layered metaphors and rich imagery that eulogizes the glories of romantic love. So I'm going to be talking about that in our session today, and it's an absolutely incredible book in many respects to see. So I'm going to be pulling out some themes here and using. I have a thing I did called Talk Through the Bible for every book of the Bible, and we have these visual presentations for all of them, plus many others in addition to the 66 books of the Bible. But this is just a little bit of an introduction to the book, and it's one way of just kind of tying the threads together. It's a complex book in many ways. It's hard to organize, but we'll see what we can do. So what we have is a love song written by Solomon. It's rich in metaphors and Oriental imagery. And historically, it depicts the wooing and the wedding of a shepherdess by King Solomon, and as well as the joys and the heartaches of wedded love. So it's a very intriguing thing. And how do we look at this? Allegorically, it clearly pictures Israel as God's espoused bride. And Hosea 2 makes that very clear, that you were a bride and you have been unfaithful to me. But it's the imagery of that lover and the beloved. It can be applied to the church as the bride of Christ, though the church, of course, was a revelation that was not made until the New Testament. It was a mystery in the Old Testament. But nevertheless, there's application because clearly we are called the bride of Christ. So you can draw certain analogies from this in that respect. So spiritual life finds its highest fulfillment in the love of God for his people and of Christ for his church. And so the arrangement of this is like a series and scenes in a drama, and there are three main speakers. There's the bride, who's called the Shulamite one time, and then there's the king, Solomon, and then there's a chorus consisting of the daughters of Jerusalem. So it's a dramatic kind of a movement there, a dialogue or kind of interchange that they have. Now the title of this book is Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, and this is a superlative. And it really means Solomon's most exquisite psalm. And so the Greek title, Asmaton, and the Latin Canticum Canticorum, they also mean Song of Songs, the superlative, or the best songs, sometimes called canticles from the Latin title. And because it's mentioned, Solomon is mentioned in chapter 1, verse 1, it's known as the Song of Solomon. But there are challenges to the authorship that we have to consider. And the Solomonic authorship really was rejected by many critics who claimed it was a later collection of songs. And many take it, chapter 1, verse 1, to mean which is about or concerning Solomon, rather than by him. But the internal evidence of the book, though, is actually pretty strong because it favors, I think, the traditional picture that Solomon is its author. Solomon specifically mentioned 7 times, and he's identified as the groom. And there's evidence of royal luxury and rich imported goods, which was consistent with his time. And as well, it refers to his harem. By this time, he had 60 queens and 80 concubines. The harem at the fullest amount. Anyone remember what it was? You had 700 queens and 300 concubines or porcupines, you see. So you have it's just you do the math, and the management of all that is just an absurdity, an absolute absurdity. And so I won't even process that with you there. Wear a man out. But 1 Kings 4:32 tells us that Solomon composed 1,005 songs. And had intimate knowledge, of course, we know, of the plant and animal world. He spoke eloquently about the natural world, as well as 21 plant and 15 animal species are referenced in this book alone. So it cites geographical locations as well in the north and in the south, which would suggest that they were still one kingdom during the United Empire rather than divided later on. So chapter 6, verse 4, for example, mentions both Tirzah and Jerusalem, the northern and southern capitals. After Solomon's time, Samaria became the northern capital. And because of the poetic imagery, it uses 49 words that are used nowhere else in Scripture. So there's a unique kind of a thing to this. So if I turn my attention to the date, it was written primarily from the point of view of the Shulamite. But Solomon was its author, I think written early in his reign, around 965 BC. But still, you're looking here at literature that's almost 3,000 years old. It's quite incredible to think about the sophistication of this material of that period, from that period of time. And it's rather unique in many respects as well. And so it may be that, how could it extol Shulamite as if she was his only bride? My suspicion is that his relationship with the Shulamite was the only pure romance he ever experienced. That's a very real possibility, in spite of all these women and so forth. The bulk of them were, as you know, were political arrangements. But it's significant that the Shulamite was a vineyard keeper of no great means. But we go on from there, and the book was written before Solomon plunged into gross immorality and idolatry. For it was so when Solomon was old that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Lord his God, which is a sad thing. This wisest of men would become a fool in his older ages. And again, his mindset was, if a little is good, more is better, and too much is just right. That was his whole philosophy when it came to money, when it came to sex, when it came to power. A little was not good enough. He had to go through everything, the whole 9 yards. And so it's an intriguing thing, though. This was, I think, written before that period of time. But the Shulamite addresses the king as my beloved, and the king addresses his wife as my love. And the daughters of Jerusalem, I think, were probably attendants to the Shulamite. And so considering the setting, the term Shulamite appears only once in 613, and it may be derived from the town of Shunem, and in the tribal area of Issachar. And the song refers, though, to 15 geographical references from Lebanon in the north to Egypt in the south. So it's a rich book and has rich imagery and complexities to it. So to give you a bit of a survey of this book, Song of Songs, the question about what we're looking at here is these metaphors. And so it's the Song of Songs that's the most beautiful elegy of love that stood out among them. Great literary value and use of metaphor, oriental imagery, and extols the purity and the beauty and the satisfaction of love. So it's got a unique place in Scripture in that respect. It's never crass, but often intimate, as it explores the dimensions of the relationship between two lovers: attraction, desire, companionship, pleasure, union, separation, faithfulness, and praise. And like Ecclesiastes, this little book is not easily outlined, and various schemes can be used, but it abounds with sudden changes of speakers, and they're not identified. So when you walk your way through this, you have to kind of sort it out and do your best to figure out what the structure is in this respect. And there are two major components that we have in this talk through of Solomon. The first part is the beginning of love, and this chapter is 1 through 5:1. And then the second part is the broadening of love. So there's a development in this scene. So in the beginning of love, King Solomon has a vineyard in the country of the Shulamite. And the Shulamite has to work in the vineyard with her brothers. When Solomon visits the area, he wins her heart, and he eventually takes her to his palace in Jerusalem as his bride. So that's the the background undergoing. She's tanned from hours of work outside in the vineyard, but she's fairest among women. Mentioned that. The song is arranged like scenes in a one-act drama. So you got these three main speakers. Again, the bride, the king, and the chorus. And so there's ways of arranging it, which I have. But Solomon, chapters 1 to 3, give a series of recollections of the courtship. The bride's longing for affection at the palace before the visit. So let me just give you a little bit of a sense of what that looks like. So she's in the first part of it then. This longing for affection at the palace before the wedding in 1:2-8. And may he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your oils have a pleasing fragrance. Your name is like purified oil. Therefore the maidens love me. So there's all this imagery of extolling your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you. So she's tanned, black but comely. The idea that she's working out, was out in the fields. The sun has burned me. My mother's sons were angry with me. So it's talking about this longing for affection. And then the expressions of the mutual love that's found in verse 9 in this banqueting hall. And so in verse 9 and following, to you, me, my darling, you're like my mare among the chariots of Pharaoh. And so all these images that are used, your necks with, your cheeks are lovely with ornaments and so forth. And so my beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms. How beautiful you are. All these images, how handsome you are. So these refrains that go on back and forth between the two of them continue on in chapter 2. So they have the bride in chapter 2. They have the imagery here of I'm a lily among the thorns, my beloved among the young men. And so all these imagery here is let his left hand be under my head and his right hand embrace me. So do not please arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. So, and then we see this springtime visit of the king to the bride's home in the country. So he's climbing on the mountains, leaping on the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. So he's coming to visit the bride's home in the country. And then you have this whole idea of the dream that takes place. So he's coming along, and we catch the foxes for us, little foxes. Some of these very well-known images here. He pastures his flock among the lilies until the cool of the day when the shadows flee away. Turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the mountains of Bether. So then she has a troubled dream, because in this context here, she has a dream of separation from her beloved. So on my bed night after night I sought him, whom my soul loves. So this idea of longing is poetically expressed. I sought him, but I did not find him. I must arise now and go about the city and the streets and in the squares. I will seek him, whom my soul loves. But I sought him and didn't find him. And so he's asking, what's this? It's kind of like this anxiety that's taking place. And then we go on to the expressions of mutual love in the banquet hall, and the ornate wedding procession from the bride's home to Jerusalem. So this takes place. What is coming up from the wilderness? Like columns of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, with all scented powders of the merchant. Behold, it is the traveling couch of Soloman. It's quite a transportation here. He's got all these people carrying him about, all these servants. It's kind of a cool traveling couch, very luxurious with pillows and everything in it. It's kind of a strange idea. 60 mighty men around it. If a little is good, remember, of the mighty men of Israel, all of them were wielders of the sword, expert in war, guarding against the terrors of the night. He's made for himself a sedan chair. You see, he's got posts of purple fabric, interior lovely, fitted out. I think I'm looking at a car or something like this. It's kind of a strange thing. So you have this imagery here of his coming there. And then in chapter 4, what you have are a superb chain of similes and metaphors in chapter 4. And her virginity is compared to a garden enclosed, and the garden is entered when the marriage is consummated. So the union is commended by God in 5:1. So, but if you go and listen to some of this imagery here, it's rather strange to our ears, because frankly, these images, taken very literally at all, would be grotesque. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats. Your teeth are like a flock of newly shorn ewes, which have come up from their washing, and all which bear tint. So I came across this thing. I had this many years ago, which is a hoot. Here, so this is the Song of Solomon illustrated. You see. Let me just get rid of this thing here. Okay, go away. This is fun. So So how beautiful you are. Your eyes are like doves. There's the doves there, you see. And it's grotesque, though, because your nose is like the tower of Damascus, which faces toward the... That doesn't sound like an attractive image for me, for a nose being like a tower like this. And then it describes your temples like a slice of pomegranate. So you got this pomegranate right there. And the hair is like these little goats. You see them all going down there. It's a very amusing illustration. And so your neck is like the Tower of David, built with rows of stones on which are hung 1,000 shields. That's not exactly attractive to me, but your lips drip honey. Honey and milk are under your tongue. So you got the honey under here. And the fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. Your navel is like a rounded goblet right down here. So the whole strange thing here, your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. So you got these fawns here, and then you've got feet among the lilies. So it's all nutty. So but it's rather fascinating to me to see this. So if you take this thing literally, you're in serious trouble. But it is very strange, poetic imagery that's very outside of my ordinary custom of using kind of these metaphors. But there you have it. It is rich in imagery and allegories and so forth. And so I came into my garden, my sister. So it was like a garden that was shut, but now in this, there's the consummation of the marriage, going into the garden and eating my honeycomb and my honey. So all these things are images there. And so the union is seen. And then they have the broadening of love beginning in chapter 5. And so going back to our text here, you can see in the broadening of love, there's the beginning of it. It begins to be unified in love. And then the broadening of love takes place. There's some struggles, and there's some growth in that process as well. So giving you this idea, sometime after the wedding, the Shulamite has a troubled dream in the palace while Solomon's away. And so we see that in chapter 5. Let me see where we are here. Yes. So all these components here. I rose to open my hands. My hands dripped with myrrh on the handles. I opened but my beloved had turned away and had gone. So there's this idea of separation and of anxiety. And the watchman who made the rounds, I adjure you, if you find my beloved, as to what you will tell him, I'm lovesick. So this admiration by the bride, my beloved is dazzling and ruddy, outstanding among 10,000. So we have her descriptions here. His locks are like clusters of dates and black as raven, and so forth. Eyes are like dove, and his hands are rods of gold set with beryl. So again, this imagery here of mutual delight in one another. So in chapter 6, we can move on to the imagery of the Shulamite begins to think of her country home, and she tries to persuade her beloved to return there with her. And so it's my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He who pastures his flock among the lilies. So the imagery here, here's more again, your teeth are like a flock of ewes. Again, not the kind of thing we would use, but there we have it. And so then in the 7th chapter, there's admiration by the bridegroom, and she's how beautiful are your feet in the sandals. And so it's an alternative thing, back and forth with one another, and these imageries that we have. And so then he has, and they speak in chapter 8, and the trophies, the imagery here, that she was a wall, and now it's her position to look out for her brothers, her sisters. Do not arouse or waken my love until she pleases. So the love is as strong as death. Jealousy is severe as Sheol. Its flashes are like flashes of fire, the fiery flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, nor will rivers overflow it. If men were to give all the riches of his house for love, it would be utterly despised. we have a little sister and she has no breasts, so he's referring to her youth. And what should we do for our sister in the day when she's spoken for her? If she is a wall, we will build a battlement of silver. But if she is a door, we will barricade her with planks of silver. I was a wall. So the idea that she maintained her purity is the imagery here. So Solomon had a vineyard, and he entrusted his vineyard to caretakers. The 200 are for those. So my companions are listening for you. Let me hear it. Hurry, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. So it's a very, very foreign kind of an image for us to try to embrace. I'm going to make some applications and pull some things out for you. But the topics, though, include the idea of courtship and of wedding, the problem that you have, and the progress that takes place as well. There's the fostering of love, and then its fulfillment. But then there's a lot of frustration that takes place as well. And then the image of fidelity. And so it takes place in Israel during the time, about a 1-year period of time in that sequence. So let me say a few words about the theme of and purpose of this book to just give you a feel for it. So the theme of the book, first of all. Okay, here we go. The purpose of this book depends on the viewpoint that you take for its primary thrust. Is it fictional, allegorical, or historical? If it's fictional, some hold that this song is a fictional drama that portrays Solomon's courtship of and marriage to a poor but beautiful girl from the country. But the book gives every indication that this story actually did happen. If it's allegorical, in this view, the primary purpose of the song was to illustrate the truth of God's love for his people. But it seems to me that the best way to see it is that of being historical. So going to that, I think it's historical. And what I mean by that is that you're dealing with an actual romance with this Shulamite woman. The various scenes in the book extol and exalt the joys of love in courtship and marriage, and teach that physical beauty and sexuality in marriage should not be despised as base or unspiritual. So it offers a proper perspective of human love and avoids the extremes of lust and of asceticism. Only when sexuality was viewed in the wrong way as something akin to evil was an attempt made to allegorize the book. But really, to see it as part of God's creation with all its related desires and pleasures, it's reasonable that he would provide us with this guide to this imagery here. So the union of the two sexes really was the imagery of the positive endorsement by God of marital love, all its physical and emotional beauty. And this interpretation doesn't mean that the book has no spiritual applications or illustrations, but it certainly does, as I say, illustrate God's love for his people. And ultimately Israel, but then later on, by analogy, Christ and the church. So if I consider the key to the book, the obvious word would be love. And so you choose that as the book celebrates this theme. And then one or two key verses in this psalm. I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. Another key verse carrying the same theme is found in the 8th chapter. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can floods drown it. If a man would give all for love the wealth of his house, it would be utterly despised. And I think that as far as this key chapter is concerned, the whole book is really pretty much of a unity, so there's no real key chapter. They all really depict the love of a married couple. So we have its contribution to the Bible, and it makes some interesting and unique contributions. Again, it's a unit rather than a collection of songs. It's a dramatic poem built on a dialogue between the same two characters and an occasional chorus throughout. There's a continuity of style, of imagery, of expression in this book. And he emphasizes the intellect in Ecclesiastes, but the emotions clearly come out and dominate this song. So it brings out another dimension altogether. This book was one of the antilegomena, which means to be spoken against. and its inclusion in the canon of Scripture was delayed because of questions over what religious value does this book have, you see. And its use of the name of God only one time in chapter 8, verse 6. It has unusual subject matter, as we've seen. And also, its lack of quotations in the rest of Scripture. It's normally has been traditionally been read at the feast of the Passover. And then we go to how Christ is seen, because whenever I do a book of the Bible, in the talk through the Bible, I always look at how Christ is seen in every book of the Bible. I actually did a little book called Jesus in the Bible once with Thomas Nelson. Went out of print, but it looked at all 66 books and showed how every book you see Jesus embedded in that book in one way or another. That's quite intriguing. So as we see this in the Old Testament, you have Israel regarded as the bride of Yahweh. And in the New Testament, the church is regarded as the bride of Christ. The Song of Solomon illustrates the former and anticipates, you might say, the latter. And so there's something that was not revealed and not known later on, but there's an analogy that's true. And in fact, it was used a lot. I should mention this in the Middle Ages. The scribes and the monks actually made many commentaries in the Song of Solomon. Why would they do that? These monks, 500 commentaries on the Song of Solomon by monks, monastics. Why? Because it was bridal mysticism. And the idea of the union of the soul with Christ was seen. This was seen and taken allegorically to describe the mystical union of Christ and us in Christ. So that's one of the reasons why it became bridal mysticism was a major theme at that particular time. So it's intriguing, isn't it, how that all works together. At any rate, applications, I have a few for you just to kind of tie it together for you. One of the applications that was interesting to me is the kiss. So just pulling out this motif of kissing, which is let's look at that motif in the Old and the New Testament. It's intriguing. The first mention of a kiss in the Bible is found in Genesis when Isaac kissed and blessed Jacob, who deceived his father by posing as his older brother Esau. You have Jacob kissing Rachel. Later in Genesis, we find Jacob giving a kiss to his future wife, Rachel, as Rachel's father Laban greets. And he greets Jacob with a kiss. Esau, having been estranged from his family, he greets Jacob with a kiss after a long separation. And then you have Joseph kissing Benjamin, this image of Joseph revealing his identity to his brothers, as accompanied by kissing and weeping. And in Exodus, you find Moses greeting Aaron with a kiss, as well as bowing down and kissing his father-in-law. Here is a wonderful image of Naomi kissing Ruth. So she gives a heart-sick goodbye, a kiss to her two daughters-in-law. In 1 Samuel, the prophet Samuel anoints and kisses Saul, declaring him king over Israel. And then the most famous in the Old Testament may be the idea of the relationship with David and Jonathan. And David kissed and wept with his dear friend Jonathan upon their forced departure. And he also kissed his son Absalom after 2 years of estrangement after Absalom killed his brother, Ammon. There are other examples of kisses in the Old Testament, and Proverbs describes the seductive kisses of an adulteress and warns against the deceitful kisses of an enemy. But this, of course, of all the scriptures and kisses in the Bible, is the most poignant of all. The most famous kiss is Judas' kiss of betrayal in the Bible. So it's like this intimacy, and it's just that distorted good that you have. And then you have Mary Magdalene, as a famous image here in the New Testament. There's the repentant Mary Magdalene, wetting Jesus' feet with her tears and kissing his feet. In the same scene, Jesus rebukes Simon the Pharisees. You gave me no kiss, but she, since the time I came in, has not ceased to kiss my feet. Certainly Jesus was accepting and encouraging of the kisses of others. And then another very rich and beautiful image is the kiss of the Father to the prodigal son when he returned. And that wonderful passage of Scripture has 5 components that I cannot resist giving to you here, because it's in Luke chapter 15. And in Luke 15, in this remarkable scene when the son, the younger son, goes ahead and he abandons his father, actually says, I wish you were dead. It's effectively what he's doing, because I want my inheritance now. And the father goes along and does this in spite of all. In spite of that, he allows him to have his own inheritance, lets him go off. He doesn't try to bail him out. But what happens is he squanders it with loose living, and he reduces himself to the point where he's now feeding unclean animals, feeding the pigs, and actually wanting to eat what he was giving them, the pods. He was starving. And then it tells us in verse 17, he came to his senses. It's an interesting image, isn't it? He was out of his mind. And when he came to his senses, what did he conclude? He said, I'd be better off being my father's hired man. I'll get up and go to my father, and I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired men. So he got up and came to his father. And verse 20 of Luke 15 is, I've shown you this before, the clearest picture of the love of God for you and me. If you want to know what the father heart of God is like, if you want to know what true fatherhood is like, here's the verse. 5 things it mentions here. When he got up and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. That's the first point. What does that mean? His father had never bailed him out, but he was waiting for him every day. He was looking at him, looking for him. And in the distance, when he finally came, he saw him in the distance. So think of how long it took for him to squander that wealth. And then he comes back. So the father's waiting for him, number 1. Number 2, it says he felt compassion for him. Third, this is most startling, he ran. That's something not done in the ancient Near East. To gird up your loins like that and then to run after your son would be an absurdity. It's totally contrary. It would be reducing him, eliminating his dignity effectively. Countercultural. But so much was his love and his enthusiasm that he literally ran to him. And then it tells us that he embraced him and then he kissed him. The son, by the way, starts his little speech. I've sinned against heaven and your sight. I'm no longer to be called your son. And what was he going to go on to say? Make me as one of your hired men, but he cut him off. The father said to the slaves, quickly bring the best robe and put it on him and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. Instead, a normal father's imagery that we would have would be he'd see the son coming to him now, and his arms would be like this. He said, yeah, now you come back? Yeah, see? You know, now you're out of money and you need me. But instead of that, you have nothing of that sort at all. But the father heart of God transcends. He knows the depths of our depravity, but he loves us anyway. And he pursues us in spite of our degradation and lifts us out of that mire and embraces us and brings us into his home. So, yes.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I read somewhere, and I don't know the credibility of it, that there was a tradition that if a son or child ran away from home and said essentially what he did, I wish you were his dad.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That it was the tradition of the people in the community, if the child ever came back, that they would stone him to death. Is there any?
I don't know that that's in the scriptures.
Okay.
I'm not aware of that, but it would certainly be a crazy thing to do, to go off like that and then come back and hope he's going to get brought back in.
So the implication of the story that I read was that the father wanted to be the first one to greet the son and to reconcile him back to the family
That's the issue.
Before others got there.
Before others got there. I think that's right. That makes complete sense. But it was his father heart of God. But how long did it take? How many days was he constantly? He must have been looking all the time. So it tells us about the love of the Father for us, because many of us need to be reparented who haven't received that blessing of the grace of God in their lives. But this beautiful painting, though, this imagery here is just a wonderful picture of the glory of God in that scene. And it's actually the Rembrandt painting. I got to see it at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg a number of years ago, right after I read the book, The Return of the Prodigal Son by Henri Nouwen, which exegeted this painting, and it was such an astonishing thing, and he describes it. So having done that, I was able to go there and study it, and I just stared at it because I knew what I was looking for then. So it was a very meaningful and profound experience. But again, a lot of men need to be reparented, and that's just the nature of what that looks like. So let me just see if we get this full size here. And then the elders of Ephesus began to weep aloud and embrace Paul and repeatedly kissed him. So you see that's another image, and greet one another with a holy kiss. So this is a major theme that runs throughout the scriptures. It's pretty significant. And this imagery here, may he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. And so the kiss plays a key role in the Bible. It can be used improperly by the adulteress, the betrayer. The primary uses of tangibly expressing love, affection, approval, respect, or passion. And may he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. So you have this multifaceted dynamic. And by way of application, that kissing and being kissed are a natural part of the way God wired us to demonstrate this love and affection. So we use properly, it's a versatile means of affection, able to communicate the range of emotion from respect to intimate passion. So the scriptures command us to greet the brethren in this physically expressive, greet one another with a holy kiss is part of that. And regardless of whether or not it seems normal in our culture. So I am my beloved, and my beloved's is mine. In addition to expressing our love, approval, and respect in this way, we can metaphorically allow the Lord to kiss us. And it's an interesting way of seeing it that way. You see, you are his beloved. His desire is for you. And so, truly, he accepts and unconditionally loves each of us, not based upon our merits, but because of his infinite love and grace. That's what makes it possible for us to have a union and to have peace with him, to have an intimate relationship with him. So it really allowing the love of our bridegroom, who deeply desires spiritual intimacy with us, to give us that relationship and that intimacy that we can enjoy with him. So it's an interesting way of going about this and to see what's involved in that. I have another little application here. I have time for that. Expressions of love and praise, so of drawing me, and so this concept here of drawing him, draw me after you. So many desires expressed in the Song of Solomon, this desire to be drawn. Draw me after you and let us run together. The Hebrew word implies a gentle drawing of love toward itself. It's used in Jeremiah 31 as well, where the Lord appeared to him saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I have drawn you with loving kindness. It's a chapter that talks about the new covenant as well. And so this same loving drawing is found in Hosea 11:4. I drew them with the cords of a man, with bonds of love. I became to them as one who lifts the yoke from their jaws. I bent down and fed them. So the word for drawn carries the idea of being attracted or pulled or enveloped by love itself. The lover draws the beloved to himself, deeming the pursued one worthy of pursuit. And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men to myself. So this imagery of drawing us. He's the one who attracts and captivates the beloved. And it's the drawing of his profound kindness that leads to repentance. So draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Again, that's the idea of the backwards and forth of the metaphors are used. So it's a rich book, and I've allowed some time for us to chat about these things. But it raises a lot of questions. It's very difficult for us to read because we're not accustomed to that kind of imagery. And those grotesque images often come to my mind. These are not the descriptions I probably would use with my bride. You see, your temple's like a pomegranate, and you're just kind of very strange stuff like that. Your teeth are like little ewes or little lambs and so forth. But there you have it. It was a very different kind of a world and a different culture. So But let me just see what thoughts you have about this. But it's a unique book, a unique chapter, a book of the Bible. Well, that was interesting. You don't know where to go, do you? Yeah, sure I did. Yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy thing, though. It's a really, it's the imagery here of this fierceness, this intensity, this closeness to them. But love is stronger than death, and so I think of it wrong one, Song of Solomon, chapter 8, yeah. So this whole idea he entrusted, but this idea that is this from. Yes, it's like as strong as death is the text that comes to my mind in chapter 8. Jealousy is as severe as Sheol. Its flashes are the flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, nor will rivers overflow it. If a man were to give all the riches of his house for love, it would be utterly despised. So this is an intriguing intensity that's going on here. Why do you think that God included this in the scriptures? See, there was a debate, as you know, over this inclusion. I think it adds a great deal in many respects. And when I'm thinking about my own bride, you see, I see her as she always has been. So I see her, and you see in the eyes that love that is stronger than death, and that even though there may be a diminishment, one can still remember that beauty and see it's the same person. And so the three things I've told Karen of late is, number one, I've never really come to told her I'd never really appreciated all that you did and sacrificed for me as I now do. So I've told her that, but it's never too late, I told her. It took me a long time to figure it out. I look back and reviewed that. See, because when I see her in her adversity, the idea of that diminishment, I then have ways of looking back and to remember her as she was. It's the same person. And so to review that and to understand that soul, but she never complains. So she suffers without complaint. She is very sweet and cheerful to me. And so I've been able to tell her those three things. Number one, I never really fully appreciated you until now. Now I will. Number two, I recognize the blunders that I made in life are related to the times when I didn't take your wisdom into account. I've always taught that really we complete each other, and isn't it so that you marry a person and that the total is greater than the sum of the parts, and so one person enhances another, and the truth is in between us. It's never one or the other. Sometimes more toward me, sometimes more toward her, but the truth is always a composite because we complete each other. So that idea, you need that difference and not reject it, but to embrace that because it'll balance you out. So that's the second thing, and it's not too late. And then the third thing is the realization, as I've told you before, that she is suffering as following in Jesus' steps, to suffer sinlessly, silently, without complaining, and as a substitute. So there's some mysterious way in which she's undergirding or underwriting the cost of the ministry. And so with everything I do, she's a part of. So what I realize then is this course of life is to understand that the greatest goods in our past are hints and anticipations of better goods to come. That's become a very major theme with me. And I want you to do the same. Anytime that you look back at anything that seems to be lost or diminishment, remember that your greatest moments of beauty, of intimacy, and of adventure are hints of better goods to come. It's not that the best is in the past. Otherwise, you're going to live in regret and remorse. Don't want you to do that. I want you to realize that the greatest things in your past are actually hints of better goods to come. They're not the things themselves, but they are hints of those better goods. If you kind of tried to love them for what themselves, they would become like a dumb idol that would break your heart. They're not the thing itself. As C.S. Lewis in The Weight of Glory says, they're scent of a flower we haven't seen, of a country we haven't visited, of a song we haven't heard. But it's an enchantment to recognize that they are pointers to what he calls Sehnsucht, or longing, for more than this world can provide, because you were meant for more. You were meant for infinity and eternity. And if in trans-temporal, trans-finite good is that for which you were meant, then any other good in which you fix your heart will be unworthy of you. So it has to be not the thing itself, but a pointer to greater goods to come. But they'll be so great in resurrected life, in a resurrected world, that you will not be disappointed. No one was going to be in the presence of Jesus in the resurrected life and in a resurrected world and say, but you said, but I thought. It'll be better than you thought. And in fact, your only regret will then be that you didn't obey him when he called you to do some things. And it reminds me of an imagery that I have here I created for my Sunday morning class, but I might as well show it to you as well. It's the tapestry. And the idea of this is one of the unicorn tapestries. It's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and we were given this as a wedding gift, an image of this. But what's fascinating about tapestries, as you know, is they don't look so good in the back side. So if you look at the back of this tapestry, what's interesting here is you look at this tapestry here, and this is the back side, and that's the front side. So it's intriguing how you'd never guess that's what's going on. Or another image is this. So you have this as the background. Who would guess that it's this? You see? So the idea is that we see the bottom of the tapestry. So as Corrie ten Boom put it, and she shows these two tapestries. Here's the front and here's the back. Oft times he weaveth sorrow, and I in foolish pride forget. He sees the upper, and I the underside. So she used this illustration while sharing a message of hope in Jesus, because this tapestry hung in the Ten Boom Museum in Holland, but it's to illustrate. But I add a little thing to this metaphor about the tapestry, about the two sides of the tapestry. What I add to this metaphor is that the most beautiful part of the tapestry will have been woven in the time of your greatest adversity. That's my thinking. I think the most beautiful patterns and images in your tapestry from God's vantage point have been woven in the times of your greatest pain. It's not accidental that Jesus bears the mark of his crucifixion. So that I believe then when we stand before him, our regret will not be the pain we endured in this world, but our regret will be the times we didn't trust him enough to obey him. I think that's what you'll regret. So try to get heaven's view. And the heaven's view is, if I'd only known. If I'd only known. So try to imagine that the best of this world are mere hints of better goods to come. And I think that'll be an enriching experience for you. I was with my friend Rodney Cripps and another friend that he brought with him from Oklahoma. And we had dinner together, and I invited Errol to join us. And this was just last week. And it was a marvel and a wonder. We went to the little Lazy Betty's, which I think is the best restaurant in town. It's got a Michelin floret. In fact, I told them, the only reason this doesn't have 3 stars, because I've been to several in Manhattan, Aquavit, Danielle, and others that are 3 stars. This is every bit as good. The reason is because it's in Atlanta. Little bias going on there. But I'm telling you, what was it like, Raymond? How would you describe you at the time? There's the menu here. It's just crazy. Frankly, looking at it, doesn't draw me to it. Crazy menu. But it's in Midtown now. They've moved it, yeah. But we had some marvels and wonders. Here's a picture of there's my pal, and then there's Rodney and John, and but look at these crazy things. They're just this is the most amazing thing I've ever had. This rice, I never had anything like it. So there it is, this A5 Wagyu. My friend was generous. He paid for this. We wouldn't be able to pay for this thing. But it was an amazing experience, and that things, but I take pictures of these things, and the reason why I do that is because you're paying for a memory. You see, that's what you're really doing. But looking at these pictures, I still remember what it was like, and that helps me a lot. And the reason why I'm doing that is because an experience like this is really like a hint of home. It's like a hint of better goods to come, and so that's the idea. Be involved in it. Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Yes. So she needs to know that even though she's confined to the bedroom, that she contributes to everything I do. She's underwriting the cost of the ministry, and that's a very significant concept that you have. And so, as I see it in 2 Peter, if I can find it, because you have this 1 Peter rather. I have a little thing I did, but I can't find it right now. It means I didn't name it. If I can't find it in 2 seconds, I didn't name it right. But it is. Yeah, this is it. Here it is. You can see this. These are the three things in 1 Peter chapter 2, and this is actually worth closing out with because it's that good. In 1 Peter, this relates to our... In 1 Peter chapter 2, you've been called for this purpose, since Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example to follow and accept. You hear what he's saying? Here's the following is an example for you to do. And then he quotes from Isaiah 53. Number one, who committed no sin, nor was there any deceit found in his mouth. So in the first part, then you have, let me get it right like this, the example of the suffering servant. So he suffered sinlessly, not because of his own sins, and 1 Peter 2, 21 to 22. He suffered silently as well, and then we see it right here in 23. And so he says in 23, while being reviled, he did not revile in return. While suffering, he uttered no threats, but kept entrusting himself to him who judges righteously. And then the third part is the most amazing of all, because there, in mysterious way, we are called to our adversities to become a substitute for others. There's some redemptive way in which your adversity can undergird your ministry and undergird what you're doing. And so in this last verse, in verse 24, then it tells us that he himself bore our sins in his body on the cross so we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you were healed. In some mysterious way, then, I believe she's undergirding the ministry. And I tell her that. So she's as much a part of what I do as what I'm doing. Do you see that? She needs to hear that. Because otherwise she said, I'm accomplishing nothing. No, your adversity in some mysterious way is making up for that which is lacking in Christ's affliction. It is undergirding and empowering the ministry. And that's a significant thing. So in my mind, that's a very powerful word for us all, yes.
Can I just make a quick statement? Ken, you mentioned the sum of the parts. We all have daughters, sons, granddaughters, grandsons. As we counsel them, we need to make sure that as they date people, as we counsel them, that they take that in mind, that the sum of the parts is bigger, right? Because I have a daughter dating somebody, and I always tell her that the people you date the two of you need to be bigger than you individually. And that's really important because I had a daughter dating someone with an addiction problem, right? And the sum of them was not greater than the parts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think as we counsel people, when we leave this room, we need to counsel people in that regard. I think this is really an important part of this discussion.
In everything we do, and I know we're out of time, but if we see a film together, we see it in a kind of a stereophonic way. There's a stereoscopy because that's why we have two eyes. There's a parallax, and that's why insects have two eyes. Because with the two eyes, what happens? Each is slightly different, and you have depth of field, the next dimension, as a result of the two eyes. So in a similar way, you have these two personalities, these two souls that are melded together. But she sees things that I don't see, and I see things she doesn't see. So the total is greater than the sum of the parts. Whether we see a film, we see it slightly differently, but the total is actually a unified understanding. So enriching that concept makes an enormous difference. So that, to me, is what life is about. Last night, and I'm going to stop with this, there's this... Archie recommended it. It's called After Death. was done in 2023 by Angel Studios. Check it out. It's most interesting about near-death experiences. So we went, that was our last thing we did, and watched that film together. Sharing those thoughts and then reflecting what it'll be like in the next world, because we want to have an aspiration for home because we're heading in the same direction. I use these illustrations from my life because I'm forced to live what I'm teaching, or life will be absurd. So I'm forced to live it out. You see, God's put me in a position where I need to do that, but I believe it has redemptive value because all of us are in the same situation. We need to choose. Remember, gratitude is what? A choice. Joy is a choice. Contentment is a choice.